Hi guys, welcome back to Crafty Not Shifty. Today I'm going to be doing an update to my original candle printing video. If you want to take a look at the original, there's a link in the description section below. So the first thing I'm going to do is take a piece of tracing paper. I've taped it to some white paper to give it some additional thickness, and I've die cut a grassy border by Lawn Fawn and also a little tiny superhero and cat from the Mama Elephant Tiny Heroes set. So I'm using these masks that I've cut out underneath this brick stencil that I have by Tim Holtz. So I've stuck the stencil down on one side so I can flip it over and easily position these stencils exactly where I want them. And to cut out the cat and the girl, I've just used the die cuts that come with the Mama Elephant Tiny Heroes stamp set. So now I've got those in place, I'm going to tape it down and just double check that it fits within my candle, and I'm going to mark off exactly where I need to ink up on the tracing paper. So I've got some ink daubers and my favourite things, red ink, and also the versafine vintage sepia ink. So I'm tapping on with the ink dauber lots of the red colour, and I felt like the red was a little bit too bright to be brickwork, which is why I'm going to come in and lightly add some of the versafine ink to darken that up and make it look a little bit more realistic. So next I'm going to take my Simon Says stamp green ink, and this is the Beanstalk green, and I'm going to swipe that across the top of the tracing paper to make it nice and green. And I'm going to take my Memento Tuxedo black ink, and I'm using my Martha Stewart stamp press to stamp the sentiment from the Mama Elephant Tiny Heroes stamp set. I'm also going to stamp two of the heroes that coordinate with the masks that I've created. So we've got the girl and the cat, and I'm going to colour those off camera with my Spectrum Noir markers. If you want to know the colours of markers that I've used to colour these in, I will have the full list on my blog. So I'm peeling off the bricked stencil and the masks that I created, and you can see that we've got the red brick ink just exactly where we need it, and we'll be able to die cut these images and lay them over the top. So using the coordinating dies and a little bit of masking tape to keep them in place, I'm placing down the die for the girl, the cat and the grassy border. So I'm going to cut apart my A4 piece of paper that I have here so it'll fit through my die cut machine, and I'm making sure to keep the plain kind of scratch paper and the tracing paper sandwiched together to make sure that there's some thickness to the piece that we're trying to cut. If you just tried to run through the tracing paper through the die cut machine, I don't think it would cut very well at all. So I've kept those together so there's some additional weight to that piece. So I'm going ahead and cutting the bottom of my grassy border, and I can see here that that actually hasn't cut all the way through the tracing paper. So I'm just going to line my die back up over the top, tape it down, cut that section out and run it back through my die cutting machine, but this time at a slight angle, which means that the pressure will be nice and even all across the die, and that's cut beautifully now. Okay, so you can see here that when you layer that piece on top, it matches up perfectly. Because obviously the tracing paper is quite transparent, we wanted to make sure that there was no red ink behind the green, behind the cat or the girl, as that would show through, so that's why those masks are so important. So now I'm going to cut apart my bricked section that I've inked up here, and you can discard of all of the pieces of paper that were behind the tracing paper. It's just those thin tracing paper pieces that you need. So I'm going to bring over the candle and lay down the bricked section first on top of the candle and line it up perfectly exactly where I want it to go. And I'll just be layering these pieces on top using some wax paper. You can also use greaseproof paper if you don't have wax paper. You want to make sure you've got a nice length so you can hold the candle at the back and keep your hand away from your heat gun. You'll just bring in your heat gun and gently melt the candle. It doesn't take much heat at all for that candle to start melting, and you want to be careful not to over melt the candle because it will end up really warped and not nice and smooth. So you can tell that the image has transferred when the white of the tracing paper disappears and you can see perfectly through to the candle colour underneath, which is this slightly off-white colour. So there we go, the tracing paper has effectively, it's sunk into the candle, and you can burn this candle like a normal candle. I haven't had any problems at all whenever I've burnt one of these candles that I've used this way with the tracing paper melted inside. And I'm just lining up this grassy die cut here. I've cut the ends off and I'm just going to snip, I'm going to cut the grass away from where the cat is going to sit to make sure that the green doesn't show through the cat's body. And again, I'm just taking the same piece of wax paper and my heat tool, running that across to melt the piece of green tracing paper into the candle. And you can see there's a little overhang at the bottom there, so I'm just going to reapply some heat and make sure to smooth that out. So now I'm going to add the girl and then the cat. So you can see these candles are really quick and easy to make. You don't have to use your stamps and dies. You can use a Sharpie pen on top of your tracing paper. This is a really nice to make maybe a gift using a child's drawing for a grandparent. You can also send the tracing paper through your printer, and I show an example of that in my other video, which, as I say, will be linked below. So now I'm just going to add the sentiment to the top, and again I'm still using the same piece of wax paper. So a small piece of the wax paper can actually go a really long way when you're making these candles. And there we have it, the candle is complete. So it is a slightly messy craft. You will end up with bits of wax on your fingers and on any surface that you are holding the candle above. So I do suggest working on top of a craft sheet or some old newspaper. So now I'm just taking a piece of shrink plastic and I'm wrapping it around the candle and kind of trimming off the excess. So shrink plastic will kind of mold to whatever shape it's attached to whenever you apply some heat. So this is a really nice way to package your candle if it is going to be a gift. And I show some other ways of packaging the candle in my other video, and I'll be uploading a video in the next couple of days showing how you can make a box to hold these candles. So if you do want to see that, make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss it, and if you've enjoyed this video, please do hit thumbs up, and I'll leave you with some close-ups of this candle. And if you stick around to the very end, I'll show you how I made another candle using a stamp set from Simon Says Stamp. So here I have my stamps and my dies that I used from Simon Says Stamp. I stamped the flower image over and over, cut it out with my dies, placed the flowers where I wanted them using some masking tape, and I gently applied some heat to the centre of each of those, then peeled away the masking tape and heat set the rest of the flowers. So thank you so much for watching this video all the way to the end. I'll have a list of all the supplies on my blog, and if you've got any questions or comments, then please do leave them below.